So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick. And then we will absolutely want to know who is on the call. But before we get into who's on the call, let me go ahead and tell you what we're going to talk about today. We are talking about MO-DVT, which is the data visualization tool on DESE. It is new. And we're going to introduce ourselves. Then we're going to talk about what are some of the barriers with data and access. And what is MO-DVT? How do you explore MO-DVT? What are some protocols you can use with your staff? And what might be next? And so that's what we hope to cover today. So who is in the Zoom would be the question. And I know we can see your names, but if you would just say hello real quick, we'll get started, and then I'll introduce myself as well. So let's start at the top. Shauna.
Sure. Hi, Shauna Stefanchik, president of Step Up, and excited to hear about this tool.
I'll go next. I'm Valerie Montgomery. I'm the Director of Marketing and Operations here at Step Up, but I also, for years, I was the data person at the school I worked for, and I'm kind of a data nerd, so I'm excited to see how this tool works. It sounds like it's really powerful.
I'm Amber Knoernschild. I'm the elementary principal at LaMonte and also a Step Up consultant.
I'm Jennifer Reniger. I'm the Data and Assessment Specialist in Republic.
I'm Lindsay Leonard. I'm the elementary principal in Pilot Grove.
And I'm Jessica Gray. I'm another consultant at Step Up and excited to see how this tool is going to help support our districts.
I'm Brandy Baker, and I'm an instructional coach at Fredericktown. So I am just on here to see how the tool works.
Welcome. I'm Sue Herrera. I'm the Director of Instructional Development at Step Up, but I'm a retired principal and data nerd. I will just say I love data. I like looking at data and trying to figure out how the data can inform our instructional decisions. And when we saw this MO-DVT tool appear on DESE, I got with Amber and I said, hey, let's work together, because of course I only have public access and I wanted to see it from a principal's perspective. And so Amber volunteered to get in and click around and see what there was. And we're happy to share that with you today in hopes that it will be useful for you and your teachers.
So I know, like many of you, there's lots of data barriers within your district. I am the elementary principal. I'm the SPED director. I have a title teacher for my school. So who's going to look at the data? Where are we going to find the data? How are we going to use the data? And just time and figuring it all out. So, those are just some of the barriers that we have in our district. And I'm sure you guys have the same barriers within your guys' district.
As you're jumping on the call, I'm so sorry if we didn't get to say hi to you. I do apologize if we skipped right over you. That was not our intent. We are happy to have each of you on the call. If there are barriers that you face in your district for accessing data or having discussions about data, if you want to throw those in the chat, we'd be happy to take a look at those and share those with everyone else. We know, as Amber and I have discussed, that a lot of times it's who's going to access the data, right? Do you have a data person that accesses everything? When is someone going to find the time to do that? And when are you going to share it with staff? And what would we do with it once we share it? A lot of times as a principal, I found I got stuck in the what and never really got to the how to make it useful. Val, if you would monitor the chat for me, if there's anything in the chat to share, I would really appreciate the help, because I certainly want to respect everyone's voice in the space.
Sure, I can do that.
So just like you guys, there's two ways that we can access state assessment data, that DRC Insight and the MO-DVT. So your DRC Insight is your performance of your students. Those are how they are performing on the standards. It's looking at how your students performed and what standards they performed well on. Where this MO-DVT really shows the growth of your students and the growth of your district. And so it can do it individually student-wise, or it can do it by different cohorts, and you could do it by teacher. So there's lots of ways that you can organize that data to see that growth and really analyze the data. I also think that MO-DVT is more user-friendly than the DRC Insight tool is, but both of them can work separately, but you can also use them to work individually for your data collection. And so what is MO-DVT? I'm going to be real honest. Sue came to me and she goes, hey, there's this new tool. Have you looked at it? And I said, I got the login. I remember it in my email, but that's as far as I got. So I dug in, and it's designed to give us data to help our students achieve goals. It's really designed for us to see that growth and figure out how to help our students grow. So it's performance achievement and growth data in charts and reports and scatter plots. Again, you can do it by individual students. You can group them by different cohorts. One of the things I really think is cool about it is that you can see what the performance could look like over time. So you can trace that 5th grade student all the way up to their math or their EOCs. And so it really does give you some of that growth data that I had never thought about before. So MO-DVT can help. Again, those M66 goals, they want growth. The state of Missouri wants to see growth for all of our students. So everybody is looking for ways to grow their students. And this is just a great resource to see the growth and figure out where you can grow your students. And it's organized in 3 categories: your building reports, your LEA reports, and your comparison reports.
So speaking of growth, on the MO-DVT, it talks to you about how do they calculate expected growth. And so we are looking at how the students performed over time and how we might expect them to grow. And that's how they get the score. So here's the mathematical part of it, which scared me when I first looked at it. I'm going to be honest with you. But then when you really analyze it, it does make sense. So the average actual score minus the expected score is what your growth is going to be. And that's how the state calculates it. It's not always going to be exact because of the rounding. And, you know, we got to bring that bell curve into everything. And so you're going to be on either side of the bell curve. And that's how you get your negative growth measure if you're on the other end of the bell curve, and the positive if you're on the right side. And so this chart meant the most to me when I looked at it, because you could get in and you could get lots of information, lots of great videos inside the MO-DVT tool. So you are a school, and here's where you typically perform. The state is going to set a growth target for you. Obviously, we want to see incremental growth over time, especially by the end of the year. That's the goal for every teacher, is to show growth, right? That's an efficacy piece. We may not reach proficiency, but we should be showing growth. And so you're going to get credit in MSIP 6 for that positive growth trend. Well, what happens if you are already above proficiency and you don't have a positive growth trend? You cannot hit the target. So those are taken into consideration by the state. Here's where you're performing. Here's how close you are to proficiency. And then here's where we would expect you to go over time. And can you meet that target? And the state does that by individual student, by cohort group, by grade level, and by school. I thought, for me, being a data nerd, I thought this was so interesting. They give you this scatter plot, and each one of these dots represents a school district. And this red line is where we average score the proficient score. So that's like that bell curve, right? So the average test scores are highly correlated with student poverty. Having been a principal of students who were in poverty, this really spoke to me. Research shows average test scores capture more about the neighborhood the school serves than the quality of the school itself. So consider this district. You look here, and at first look, you're thinking, wow, that's an underperforming school. This is the same school when you look at growth. So it makes a difference. A well-specified growth model really is going to break down the actual growth. And it's going to be more equitable as we measure things over time.
So this is an example of a student report that I pulled from the MO-DVT. And I took off my students' names, but you can see how it groups them. You've got your low, medium, your middle high, and your highest students. And then it shows that difference in performance. So are they growing? Because even some of your high kids, they went down, like their growth went down. So, but yet they scored at the proficient level. So it really gives you a snapshot of each student within your district and can really help with grouping them.
So we're gonna the next couple slides are snapshots, and then we're actually gonna get in the MO-DVT tool. So we're gonna get in there and really show you what it looks like. But we wanted to front load all the info so that once we get in there, you know exactly what you're looking at.
So this is an example of an LEA and building report. So all the things on the left-hand side, on the y-axis, and then all the things on the x-axis. So you can look at your growth and all of those different things, and then you can put them into the different cohorts. You can do it by gender, you can do it by race, you can do it from your gifted students, your EL students. And I'm pretty sure that you can do a couple of groups. Part of the reason we struggle to show you this is just to keep everything confidential with students. So this is definitely something that I've dug into a lot as a principal, is putting in those different cohorts and seeing where they come out and looking at the different models, different grade levels, and you can even compare grade levels to each other. So. And then this is an example of how, like, you can run reports by the students' names, or then again, you can go into those different demographic areas, and then you can do it by test and subject areas. And then you can add multiple tests so that you compare the different tests to each other. And you can download all of these reports and print them so that you have this information to share at your data team meetings and such. And then this is one of my favorite things. Like, I've been tracing all of my elementary kids to see, you know, where they'd end up on their end of course exams and things like that. So fourth grade does not have this. Fourth grade just projects fourth grade because there's not enough data to show where they're going to go. But from fifth grade on, you can trace where a student will project out to their through their EOCs.
Okay. So when you get to the home screen for MO-DVT, we took a screenshot of Amber being logged in. There's going to be a spot where it says, do you need an account? So if you can't find that email from DESE, they are going to walk you through so you can get your login and get started. We're going to go ahead and take you to MO-DVT right now, and we're going to stay in public access so that you can see what the public has at their fingertips. And really, it's enough. I mean, if all we had was public access, it's really a great tool. You as a principal will be able to get in and look at individual students where we have more of a global view. So Amber wanted to start on these building growth reports.
So at first we thought you just had to scroll. You can actually just type in your district and make it easier. But it is a great tool so that you can look at, you know, my fourth grade, they were lower, but my fifth and sixth, they were still on track, but the growth was greater in my fifth and my sixth grade. My math, they were about the same in fourth and fifth, sixth was higher. And then you can compare the growth details, which is those numbers that will actually give you whether they went down or how much they went up. And then
growth for academics, what? It just died. What'd you say, DESE's what?
So you can see all of that information. You can also compare, like, Sue, if you go back over to the left and you click on the 2023.
Sure.
I could compare the growth. Like, my fifth grade was below. We made some changes in fifth grade, and now they're from the 23 to the 24 school year. And now you can see that growth really well there. Just showing some of those things. So it's really nice. The other thing I like about it is at the top, you can compare districts. So I'm in the K-Singer conference. I can go in and put in a district that's close to mine in size and student ratio and compare and say, hey, can I come send some teachers to observe in your district? You're doing some really great stuff at the fifth grade. I can tell you're exceeding. Or, you know, they could reach out to me and say, you know what are you doing for data and tracking that your kids are doing great in fourth grade? So it kind of opens that conversation. I know sometimes I go to my principals conference or principals meetings and we talk about stuff, but sometimes I don't think we really dig into stuff to help each other out within our district. So I feel like this is a good starting point to start those conversations.
And again, I'm in the public facing access. So all of this is through the public facing. If you get into your actual data, you'll be able to drill down by students and cohort groups. So this is great, even just for the public facing. Questions or comments about this part? The LEA reports are the same as the builder reports because you can extrapolate both ways. I showed that scatter plot to you, so I'm going to go to the scatter plot, and we're going to take all buildings in the state, and we'll take this last year, and let's do 5th grade language arts. Let me get my screen adjusted so you can see it. This is so interesting because the dots represent schools, right? And remember that line is that middle of that bell curve. I'm trying not to click on anything because I don't want to put anyone on the spot. But when you hover over a dot, it does give a school district. And so the first thing I think about is which dot do I want to be as a principal, right? And so I'm looking for districts that are really overachieving, because I want to connect with them, especially if, like Amber said, if they are similar in size and makeup to the district I'm in. You can go down here and go to the data table. And again, this is all in the public facing, and you can sort by growth, who had the most growth, and by performance. And then up here at the top, any report you like, you can download. So for me as a data nerd, very interesting to look at growth and see who is exceeding the expectation of the district. Sue, can you hover over the bottom dot so we can see if it's CE? No, Natalie, it is not CE. I promise. I've already hovered. You're fine. She cracks me up. Okay. Amber, is there anything else in here we wanted to show? I think we wanted to go maybe back to.
Oh, you were gonna go back and log in as me so they could see that first screen.
Okay, let me just show you some of the tools that they have to help you, because I do think that when we get in here, sometimes it's really difficult. Whoops, sorry. It's really difficult to understand every single report that they're giving you. So let me log in. And again, I'm not going to get in here and do a whole bunch of stuff that.
But this first screen that pops up is exactly what you see when you go into public access. So really, this is a screen that is your public access screen. The reports part is where you really dive into your information and get into that data that is more confidential and based on students.
Right. So this is the only part not available on the public access. And of course, I'm not going to click on those for confidentiality purposes, but just wanted you to know they are there. I wanted to click on the e-learning because the videos and the tutorials they have are very helpful. And that is not always the case sometimes. And so they have these really great videos, and you can tell I've been watching them.
Welcome to the Growth Report Guided Tour. I'm Correlation.
And I'm Mathematics.
I just think their names are cute, so I thought that was hilarious. And they go through everything and it makes sense. It's not like you have to have a PhD to understand the data and statistics extrapolation that they're giving you. It is given at a public facing level, actually, so that you can, relate it to your teachers. So the e-learning would be great for your teachers as you're trying to get in there and look at some of these data reports and say, so what, now what? So let's pause just for a minute. We've got a few more slides, but let's pause just for a minute because we've thrown a whole bunch at you. Can you drop in the chat something that you've seen that you think would be particularly useful for your school? We'll take just a few minutes to do that. Natalie says school comparisons of same demographics will be helpful if they are succeeding. We can go observe comparison to see where we are year to year in school comparisons. I might use them for who we've identified maybe from our iReady or our NWEA tests. Does it match who they say is on the bubble? I would want to compare those tests because as a principal, we put a lot of stock into some of those assessments. As a title teacher, I help set goals for students to strive for each year with their MAP scores. This tool will help me better explain scores from previous years and help students see where they can make growth each year. Great.
That's a great idea.
Right. And as a former principal, I would triangulate it with other data and drill down to specific students to improve growth. Right. You want to compare your whatever your data engine is in your district, whether it's iReady or STAR, NWEA, in comparison with any common formative assessments that you've created. Is the data saying the same thing? And then in some districts, you're going to want to drill down to discipline and attendance as well to be able to say, okay, is the child coming to school? Are there other issues that we need to know about? Thank you for that.
Okay, so now you have the data, the what and the how of how to use it. So one of the ways I would absolutely use it is to analyze those standards in that DRC insight report and correlate it to our growth. Let's look at our standards. Where are we meeting them? Where are we not meeting them? How does that correlate to our growth? And what areas do we really need to focus on? Also use it to engage in those data discussions with my staff. Like, okay, you are performing really great in ELA, but math, our kids are struggling. There's not as much growth there. How can I help you? What professional development can I provide? Should you go observe another teacher? Again, correlate with those other districts within our area. And then identify those students for RTI or after school tutoring. Also look at those bubble kids, those kids that are basic, but could move to proficient really well, easily. So really focus on those kids that you can grow. And the other thing that we talk about all the time is that vertical alignment of instruction. Fourth grade's performing really well, fifth grade is not, but sixth grade is kind of in the middle ground. Where are we missing the boat? How are our standards not aligned? Are we teaching what we need to teach for the curriculum that we have? So really look at that vertical alignment of instructional practices and our curriculum and make sure that we align where we need to align.
And there's Bob. We say the same thing every time. It is the guaranteed and viable curriculum that is the #1 determining factor in student achievement. So as we're looking at growth using the MO-DVT, some questions we want to ask ourselves are we covering all the standards in a way that we should be? Do we have a viable scope and sequence? Do our assessments reflect the level of competency that we know they're going to be assessed at? And does the instruction ensure that we're using high yield instructional strategies to deliver that instruction? There's so many things to unpack and so many things that teachers are responsible for. And so if this data tool can expedite some of those conversations, that's really what we want. And of course, at Step Up, we want to provide the tools to help expedite that as well. So when you talk to your staff, you need guiding questions. I have 2 examples, and I'm going to drop both of these in the chat, the links to them. The first one is a data analysis protocol that we have used forever. And I will drop that link in there. And the other one is from the MO-DVT. It's reflecting on the growth reports, and it's telling you what they think you should be able to do. So I am going to.
So think about, as Sue's sharing those links with us, like think about how can you lead that discussion? How can you use these tools within your district to guide some of these questions? Are you going to use it during your data team meetings? Are you going to get together and do some vertical alignment? I'm super lucky. We are pre-K 12 in one building. So those vertical alignment discussions and some of that data stuff is real easy for us to have on our PD days. But how can you make sure that as they're moving from your elementary building to your middle school building to your high school building, that you are aligned and vertically aligned and that they understand the data you're sending them?
So hopefully you got both of those in the chat. If you did not, I will make sure that I get those to you. Again, it's Shauna, where is this one from? The Atlas protocol?
Well, formerly the National School Reform, it's
Thank
now
you.
CLE, but that's where we originally got it 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, Shauna and I have been asking these same 4 questions, and as I'm sure some of you have for a very, very long time. And it works with any data set, right? And it works with any group of people. So from Board of Education, which Shauna and I did recently with some data, to a small group of teachers. These questions really facilitate easily the process. And then the other one from MO-DVT, I have not used yet. So Jennifer says, I've used the MO-DVT protocol many times and it's produced the best conversations and follow-up plans. That is good to know because I just found it. So thank you so much for telling us that it actually works. We will have to use it.
Jennifer, any tips for people who want to use it?
I actually have not used it with growth data. I've used it for multiple other types of data, and it still works absolutely well. It's the very best one that I've ever used.
So the celebrate success, identify areas of improvement, all of those questions.
All of them. We
Okay.
go through all of them, and they don't all necessarily apply, in every situation for every type of data that you're looking at. But it's easy to know, if I'm facilitating it, it's easy to know which ones, to skip over, which ones to use. And I've taken these and put them into a Google Doc and then just, make a copy every time that I get with a new team. And then I just take notes while they're talking. And I try not to talk unless they're not going a direction that I feel like they probably need to go, then I'll just insert a little bit here and there. But other than that, I just pose the question and listen and take notes for them.
That's great.
I love that. But 2 things from there that I heard in there was you used a Google Doc and make a template. Soon I found that's well when working with a group to go ahead and have the questions in front of them, because I feel like it's a little bit ambiguous on this sheet. Like if you put the question in a box for them to write, or you're recording on a Google sheet. And then, oh gosh, now I'm going to lose the other one that you said. Well, and you can modify it for each group ahead of time, but keeping the notes, I think, and putting it in a template form really works well. Oh, the other thing that is one of the hardest things, but the best thing about protocols is trying to be quiet. And I am very guilty of this. But when you're with the group, I mean, when you get trained like we were before, you really say the question and then the facilitator stays quiet. And we even set a timer. And sometimes even make sure you go around and every person shares. And the only reason I say that is I feel like sometimes we lose it, but it's making people do that feels uncomfortable. But you don't want somebody who's a talking head and miss somebody who's got a really interesting insight. It's usually your quietest people are those deep thinkers who have a great insight and they don't always get it shared. So sometimes if you have it in a template, if you don't feel comfortable calling out one by one, letting everybody fill out what they think first and then sharing, it just honors the different personality types of our thinkers that won't actually verbally say it out loud. And sometimes, again, I find they have the best insight.
That's great. I love the idea of giving them a template. I was thinking, but it was a happy accident one time, and I was trying to expedite things, but it ended up showing me trends. I met with all my teams one day and I had just opened up a Google spreadsheet where I could record horizontally on one sheet what everyone was saying. And at the end of the day, I started to see trends, like everyone was having the same areas for improvement. Everyone was having the same need, or maybe there were some grade levels that had a success in an area that other grade levels did not. And so it allowed me to look at trends in a different way, maybe in a more systematic approach. But I definitely agree. They've got to have some template in front of them. Natalie, I saw that you were asking for something that was blank. I'll get you whatever you need. I'll talk to you afterwards and for sure get you whatever you want.
Can I say one more thing on this?
Please, please.
The piece that I find is missing on other protocols is the monitor the plan. And this has been a fantastic way for me to listen to their plan, because often they come up with a plan where it's just way too far between the data points. And so then I talk to them about, small chunks of time and being able to monitor the plan that way so that we don't get, 3 or 4 months down the road and when we find out it wasn't working. So it's been a game changer in many ways.
I love that. We want the smaller chunks too, so that, yes, so we can stop if we're not seeing progress, but so that we can celebrate sooner too sometimes, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anything else before we move on? So we're coming to the end of what we had to share with you. So do we have any questions or any aha moments that you want to share about the MO-DVT tool?
I will say, go in and play in it. Like, this has just been a very brief overview. Like, you really can dive as deep as you want to dive into the data. In fact, I've kind of gotten lost in the data sometimes, just playing around in it and seeing what all there is to see. And like I said, I'm a very small district, so I have 170 kids pre-K-12. So I really know my kids, but this really gave me a new insight into some of my kids and kids that I thought, oh, I didn't see them as a bubble kid. They were a bubble kid. So like really dive into it and play around, like take some time to just look at everything there is to see.
May I ask a question?
Uh-huh.
I'm wondering about those student score projections. So on the practitioner level, how are you really truly using that? And how are you getting people to buy into caring about that particular data?
So I've really started with my 5th and 6th grade team, because we have the most data there. And just talking about how we can prepare those kids for moving to the middle school, because here we go to 6th grade, and really looking at, okay, well, this kid is low, but they have some growth. And so I'm taking that conversation and talking to our junior high teachers. They have just started RTI. And so really sharing that information and what we're doing to help those students grow on the elementary side, to move them to junior high is where I've started with it.
I don't know when MO-DVT was released, but I do know that it's new. And so I'm not sure that there's an awful lot of action research data yet to say, hey, this report was most useful, or here's how it allowed me to continue to meet that growth indicator. But if there's people on the call that actually use it and can talk to Missouri educators about, hey, here's how I used it, and here's how I managed the growth, and here's the benefit of it, we would love to have you back on to share that experience, because that's really how we're going to utilize the tool and learn from one another.
And
I know
Shannon,
I didn't get my login until November.
Yeah.
Is when my email popped up with it. And there was really no information about it. It was just this random email that said, here's your login. So.
And Shannon from Willard, I know you're on the call. Hopefully you've gotten a few nuggets. Anything you would add or unique ways you've used it? She might have popped off. I might have missed her.
Has anyone on? Go ahead.
Sorry. Does the login come from your superintendent, or does it come from did it come directly from DESE?
I think my superintendent signed me up for it, Lindsay.
Okay. I just saw in here, it said contact your superintendent. So
yeah, I think Justin took care of getting it for me. So
yeah. Okay, so hopefully today you walked away with knowing what MO-DVT is, how do you get your login, what you can already access from the public view, because you can drill down to your school and do some comparison reports. You can get to those scatter plots that show where you land in the scheme of things by grade level, by year, by students, by building. And so once you get your login, you'll be able to drill down by students. You'll be able to personalize the reports for your school district. What's next on the network? We do have other calls coming up. We have next week using vertical progressions to enhance writing instruction. And then the week after that, training and retaining effective teachers. We always appreciate having people on the call, but please know we do record all of these and we'll make them available. And then something we are super excited about, I got to put a plug in, we are having a conference. Step Up is hosting the Missouri Curriculum and Instruction Summit. We're going to be shining a light on all the excellent things happening in Missouri, and that's Tuesday, June 17th in Columbia. If you have not received information on it, you will be very soon, and we're just excited about it, and we hope that you can save the date on your calendar. Shauna or Val or anyone else, anything else you want to say for the good of the cause?
No, but we hope you come to the conference because lots of people have asked us to do it. So here it is.
Right. All righty. Thank you so much for your time today. I will say that Amber and I are happy to continue the conversation. So if anyone needs help, Amber's been in it. I'm happy to find out whatever you need. Step Up's willing to continue to collaborate with you to understand the MO-DVT tool. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank
And
you,
stay
Lane.
well.
Yes.